speech prepared, but now I can't. So we're going to have to make it quick and shorten it. So I apologize for the sound. It's very loud. Can everyone hear me okay? Is it too loud? Yes, it is. Okay. Well,
it's down to 14.
It's down to 14. Now it's down to 10. Normally it's up to 70. So Melissa was back here working on this. Okay, anyway, I'll try to keep this back here. Well, good morning everyone, happy Friday, and did everyone enjoy the happy hour yesterday? So that was a really nice event, and it's kind of a good way to get everyone together for a good reason, but also to kind of keep telling the same story, to remind folks about the foundation that we're looking to grow and the good that it can do. It's one of those things where I think I've talked about it over a number of years, but folks still say, I never heard about it. And really that kind of falls on me to talk about it more. And just like anything else, the more you talk about it, it stays fresh in your memory. So, but it was great to see everyone in there. I heard from Dennis, our bartender, and he said there was more people here than for the anniversary party. So that was great. So now I'm going to transition to, since we're talking about a happy hour, talk about our bar. So we're making some changes. We're changing vendors where we buy our wine and our liquor and I guess our beer too. And the reason we did that was our existing vendor is becoming more and more difficult to get the items that we wanted. I know we didn't have the best selection. We tried to get better wines, we tried to get better alcohol, and it just wasn't available. But prices were still going up. So Lisa looked at another vendor and came up with someone great. And so now we're looking to have better wines. I don't know, I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I'm told the wine is just okay. Well, we're going to have some better selections for you, and we're going to have some better liquor selections as well. So, okay, thank you for cheering. Now here comes the other side of it. We have not raised bar prices. I believe 5 or 6 years ago we went up a quarter. We haven't, but if you go back 11 years, we really haven't raised prices. If you go to Manja, a glass of wine is $9.
What?
Yes. At Fox Run, as of last week, it was $4. So we are going to raise the prices across the board by $1. So now a glass of wine is going to be $5 instead of $4. We're also, so our goal is to just make all of you happy, but we're not, this isn't a moneymaker for us. So when you see prices go up, and when you see the pours go down a little, we're going to monitor the glass sizes again. So we're going to get carafes. So what you're going to get for a glass of wine is a true glass of wine that you would get at any restaurant, not a Fox Run pub glass of wine. What that means is, let's say, so a bottle of wine should give you 4 glasses. The last time I got statistics, we went through 8 bottles of wine at a happy hour, which should be 8 times 4 is 32. We only got 22 glasses out of it. So we're pouring a little heavy, and I know it's easy to encourage the bartender, whether it's Dennis or whether it's one of your celebrity bartenders. And I certainly don't mind, but when you say just pour a little more, it does put, I'm told it makes people uncomfortable because they don't want to let you down. So now we're going to have it pre-measured, at least for the wine. And when it comes to drinks, we're going to actually use the jigger as a measurement as well. So if you'd like more, you may be charged for 2 drinks. So no longer a full 12 ounces of Jack Daniels as 1 drink. I'm not saying anyone does that, but I'm being facetious. So if you have any questions, again, it's going up $1. I think it's reasonable. I will say there was talk of a much higher raise, but we want to keep it, we don't want to just hit you all at once. So we're just going up $1, and then next week we'll go up $2. Not kidding. Next year, maybe. Okay, so that's really all I had
Matt
for.
wants them to know apartments are going to be power washed next week, so maintenance will be coming in to close the windows.
Okay, so maintenance is going to be coming into your apartments next week to close your window, or make sure your windows are closed because we're going to start power washing. The bistro, as a reminder, starting the 15th, thank you, Sue and Melissa. See, I don't have my notes. The bistro is going to be closed starting the 15th and will reopen the week of the 29th. So 2 weeks later, it's going to be shut down. We're going to be moving everything to the oak room. We're going to have some traveling happy hours. So if the weather's nice, they may be on the patio. If not, we're going to find some space within Fox Run to do that. So you'll see some changes. So bear with us for a couple weeks, and then hopefully that goes well. Anything else I'm missing? When I find the list, I'll jump back up here and interrupt our speaker and say, I remember. Yes, Alona.
The date at the other CCRCs, I've lost that in my...
Okay, so you're talking about our CCRC Summit?
Yes.
So on June 14th and 15th,
Thank you.
we're going to have probably about 70 to 80 people from across the state that all do what I do and do what we do here for an educational session, and then we get to show off Fox Run a little bit.
Thank you.
So I know Matt sent out a list of, in the newsletter of all the projects he's going to be working on in spring. If you have any questions, let us know. And we're very excited. Things are going to look great around here. Any resident announcements? Sue? Oh boy.
Hold it down.
You got to really hold it down.
I have my list.
Do you have mine too?
Last week in your mailboxes, you got this notice about the rummage sale. On the front page, it gave the details about the rummage sale, which is coming up on September 15th. On the back side, it suggested items you might want to donate to the rummage sale, and also items that we are not going to accept at the rummage sale. This notice is posted on bulletin boards, it's in the elevators, and also it has been put on the Quilt app under forms and info. So if you've got the Quilt app, you can always at hand have this notice. The week of the sale, we have no place for storage, so that creates a problem. The week of the sale, which would be starting on Monday, there will be pickups if you have big items in the apartments. Maintenance will also do a pickup at patio homes. So that information will be forthcoming. I have more of these notices with me today, and I'll be here after coffee hour if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, Michelle. Well, while Michelle's walking up, hey, Allie, is it next week is Nurses Week?
Nursing Care Week, yeah.
So next week is Nursing Care Week, and if you work in our health center, it's going to be a great week to be there. Allie has planned so many, Allie Olson, our administrator who's in the back, has planned so many cool events. She's starting with a scavenger hunt, so she's very proud. She's got these lists of clues, and they all rhyme, and our nurses get to take some time away from their schedule and kind of look for things and get prizes. But we're also going to have a food truck for them. She has the game of Plinko, if anyone remembers from Price is Right. So it's going to be a fun week for everyone. So we're trying to take care of those who take care of all of us.
Good morning. Real quick. Next Thursday, May 18th, is the Farmers Market. It will be from 10 until 2. Two Thursdays, sorry. This is the only coffee hour between now and then, though. Okay, Thursday, May 18th is the Farmers Market from 10 until 2, and Polish Villa will be our food truck. So we've got some brand new vendors as well as some of our favorites, and hope to see you rain or shine. If it is raining, it will be inside here in the event center. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, with any other resident announcements? Okay, well, let's move forward. I'm going to introduce our introducer, Sue Oliver. You wouldn't mind coming up?
Okay.
Very excited about this one.
Me too. Okay.
Jump in the cord.
Yes. All right. I am very pleased to present our speaker for this morning because this involves everybody in Western New York. This is the Holland Land Grant Museum is in Batavia, and we have with us this morning Richard Beatty, who is a volunteer there. He's also a volunteer at the Frank Lloyd Wright Martin House. So he's very interested in this, and he will give us some information that I think you'll find very interesting. Richard.
This is going to be, let me know, is this all right? Because I have hearing aids. Anybody in here have hearing aids? Sorry, my form of humor. People often say when, can you hear it all right? It's just, how about that, right here? This, you like it like this? Oh, okay. Believe it or not, I'm also, I was a DJ at WGCC 90.7 up until last Thursday when the station got sold, believe it or not. So, sad day. Yeah, so whenever I'm at a gathering and there's a microphone, people go, oh, keep it away from that man, please. So, again, my name is Richard Beatty. I've been a volunteer at a number of organizations over the years. Been at the Martin House in Buffalo. Anybody been to the Martin House here? We have some. All right. Did you take one of my tours? Anybody recognize it? Maybe, maybe not. So, yeah, I've been doing tours there for 20 years. I've been active with the docent training program as well. I do a lot of stuff with kids programs. It's a great organization and a great site. If you haven't been, I highly suggest going. But enough about that. About 2 years ago, I turned 70, and I thought, I'm driving back and forth from Batavia to Buffalo, 42 minutes door to door, and I thought, I need to really start thinking more locally. And I've been by this building many times. It's right across from Dunkin' Donuts in the heart of Batavia, and I guess I was at Dunkin' Donuts a few times and looked out. And I often wondered, well, what in the heck is that? And so finally, after too many years in Batavia, I started to go there and started to understand what it was all about. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm definitely not the expert, so I highly advise, number one, okay, some brochures back in the back. Take one of those, and if you're really, really interested, you become a member. It's cheap. We have a wonderful YouTube channel, which our director, Ryan Duffy, every week puts out a new YouTube on some aspect of history within the confines of the Holland land purchase, which we're going to get into. So I advise that. It's a great organization there as well. All right, so who the heck was Joseph Elliott? You guys all know. In fact, I'm wearing it. After, when we're done, I'll walk around and show you my tie. My tie is of downtown Buffalo. And Ellicott was the guy that laid out the streets, focusing on downtown and radiating out away from the Buffalo River, downtown Buffalo. So, Joseph Ellicott. Joseph Ellicott was he was born in Bucks County, Pennsylvania in about 1860. He was one of 9 children. He had a twin sister and a twin brother, the 2 twins. And he had, let's see, 1, 2, 3. There were 4 surveyors in the family. Of course, surveying is very important, particularly in a developing country like the United States was back in the end of the 1700s and into the 1800s. So Joseph Ellicott, brother Andrew, actually laid out Washington, D.C. The streets, of course, very similar to the design of Buffalo, the radiating streets out away from a center point. So brother Andrew did not come to Western New York, but Joseph Ellicott and his 2 other brothers, Benjamin and David, also came to Batavia. All right. Now, bear with me, technology. I'm pretty good at it. And again, if I can't be heard back there, just go like that. I know you're my source over here. You're going to tell me, aren't you? All right. All right. Let's see. So this building that you're seeing, this sketch was made probably in the 19th century, I guess. This the Holland Land Company building dates to 1815. The original land company building was actually in Joseph Ellicott's mansion, which has since been torn down. That was there in 1805. The first land company building was in Asa Ransom's Tavern, which still exists. So Joseph Ellicott set up camp there back around 1800. All right. I hope I can point at this. Come on. Okay, this worked before. Is it off?
Let me see if I can.
Here, technical. That works.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
I can press it for you if you want. Oh, laptop's frozen.
All right, well, you unfreeze the laptop. I don't want to, I know somebody has a golf date and I want to make them late. All right, so let's talk about what is the Holland Land purchase? Anybody know that story? Go ahead and nod. Don't speak up, though. I'll get confused if people start speaking. So Joseph Ellicott was in Pennsylvania, grew up there, and became a surveyor early on. And in the late 1790s, or the mid-1790s, the Holland Land Company, and where else but Holland, a consortium of Dutch bankers, got into the idea that, we can make a lot of money if we buy land in the United States and sell it, for a profit. Flipping, that's where the original flippers came from, was from Holland. So, it's coming. So Joseph Ellicott is in Pennsylvania. He's doing some survey work across the Northeast. In fact, he worked as a surveyor in Georgia. Ultimately, his reputation became known to a fellow by the name of Casanova. You guys all know Casanova Park, Casanova, New York. That's the gentleman. He was actually an Italian he was Dutch, I do believe. And he was the first land agent stationed in Philadelphia. He was replaced very shortly after that by a fellow by the name of Paulo Bustye. Anybody know Bustye? Bustye, New York. So you're going to have all the names of these fellows becoming names of the places that we're familiar with. So Paulo Bustye became aware of Joseph Ellicott and his skill at being a very, very accurate surveyor. And he brought Joseph into his office, hired him. Joseph Ellicott then said, okay, I've got to survey roughly 3 million acres of land. All right, it's coming up. I got some backstory. I don't want to, the backstory is coming up. All right, here it comes.
The anticipation.
The anticipation. Here we go. There it is. Everybody know what that is, right? Holland Land Company. And
There you go.
it's working?
It is working.
You're sure?
No.
Well, before we talk about the survey, I want to point out this map. This is a map that was actually sketched by, I'm going to forget his name, but he was a town historian here somewhere in Western New York. We do have any town historians in the audience? No? All right. So this is a map of Western New York, and this is showing all the locations of the Native Americans that lived here. The Iroquois Federation was made up of 6 Indian tribes, and I'm going to describe them from, if I can get this to work. Sure. Right here. These are the Mohawks. Next are the Oneidas along Oneida Lake. Then the Onondagas around Syracuse. and then the Cayugas off of Cayuga Lake, and last, and then way down here, the Tuscarora. The Tuscarora were the last addition to the Confederacy. All the way from just between Seneca Lake and Canandaigua Lake was all Seneca land. And everybody has probably been to the Seneca, or to the various reservations for gas or cigarettes, right? This is where they all lived, and they had lived here since they came over the Bering Strait many years ago. Living a very peaceful life, apparently, according to the legend. And, of course, what's happening over on the coast at this point? You know, Mayflower shows up in 1619, I believe. The entire eastern seaboard is developed. Now, this is an interesting map here. You see the sort of the stippled area there along the coast? Those are basically the states as they existed in 1790. But you'll notice that Massachusetts, Connecticut, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, not showing there, that extended all the way to the Mississippi River. The states weren't established yet, but that was their territory. So New York and Massachusetts both claimed Western New York. They both claimed all the way to the Mississippi River. So when it came time to develop Western New York, we had to figure out, but they had to figure out, how are we going to orchestrate this? How are we going to be able to lay out land if we don't own it? But let me get my notes on this one. This is a story here. Bear with me, bear with me. So, before Joseph Elliott could come and survey the land, we had to figure out how he's going to do this. What is the orchestration of the land? All right. At the end of the American Revolution, the land comprising Western New York was claimed, as I said, by both New York and Massachusetts. Massachusetts' claim to the area was based on a charter which had been granted by the British Crown. This dispute was finally resolved in 1786 with the drawing of the so-called preemption line that passed near the present-day Geneva and ran from Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania state line, which had been established. Under the agreement of 1786, New York governed the land west of the preemption line, but Massachusetts owned the land. So, how are we going to solve this? Once the settlement was reached, Massachusetts set out to sell Western New York holdings to private investors. Sales were made to many different individuals coming across the state east of here. The land in the Batavia area was eventually purchased in 1791 by a gentleman by the name of Robert Morris. You might know Robert Morris. He was, I believe, a signer of the Declaration of Independence and also a major financier of the Revolutionary War. So he bought the land, but the Dutch investors are going, okay, we're going to buy the land from this guy, but before we do that, we have to settle any Indian land claims. So this occurred in 1797 outside of Geneseo at the Treaty of Big Tree. Anybody know where Big Tree might be? Actually, it just washed down the river within the last 30 years or so. They cut it up, and you can buy little samples of it from some of the historical society. So the conference was, or the treaty process, about 50 Seneca Indian sachems or chiefs met along with representatives from the Holland Company and also the state of New York and the federal government. It went on for about 2 or 3 weeks. There was back and forth. Red Jacket, you guys know who Red Jacket is? Red Jacket, we'll talk about him shortly. He fought for the Indians not to give up so much land. Well, guess what? There's this is a plaque outside of Geneseo. It says, just west of here, a large council house covered with green boughs and fitted with a platform and rows of seats, Red Jacket and other Seneca chiefs resisted with ability and ingenuity the sale of title to their lands west of the Genesee. Well, let's see, how did the Indians do? This is a great image of Red Jacket. He's wearing a medal that was given to him by George Washington in 1792, a very large medal. That was at the Buffalo History Museum. I understand it's just recently been given over to the Seneca Nation. I'm not exactly sure where it's located. It still exists. I was able to find a book on the internet from 1841. Now that's some old stuff there. So the title, The Life and Times of Red Jacket. His Indian name is Sagoyi Waha, and that means one who talks a lot. Believe it or not, that is true. He was an orator, and if we have time, I have a wonderful section of the speech he made to a missionary in 1811. We may not get to that. All right, so here's Joseph Ellicott. He's the guy that's going to be surveying the land. He's coming to Western New York with about 200 surveyors, and this is how they looked back in the day. You know, they had the transit, the measuring sticks, and guess what? There was no established ruler. It was the king's foot, right? However big the foot is, that's how you marked off the land. So Joseph Ellicott took all the rulers that were in use at that time and averaged them all out and came up with a 12-inch ruler. So thank you, Joseph Ellicott. Otherwise, we would be very confused when we go to buy land because, well, that guy's foot's bigger than mine. So they established that. And Joseph Ellicott did half of the territory, and his brother Benjamin did the eastern half. Took about 2 years to survey all this land, divided it into a very organized, you'll see, very organized method. Now, before we get to the method he did, you guys see Fox Run here in the red dot?
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this was in the Holland land purchase. Everything that's in yellow was set aside for the Indians. And you can see way up north, if you go off of 77, that's the Tonawanda. If I can get this to work without, that's the Tonawanda Reservation. All these reservations along the Genesee River are no longer reservations. This is the Allegheny Reservation outside of Salamanca, and then of course the one that we drive through on our way south or west on I-90, the Cattaraugus Indian Reservation. The big yellow one though, does that exist anymore? No. And I'll tell you, you remember when they put the casino in Buffalo? You guys don't go there, right? Nobody goes to the casino. I read that the Indians are going to build a casino in Buffalo. I go, well, how do they orchestrate that? And well, of course they did that because that was their land. The next map, this is an interloop. Oh no. There's the Indian reservations laid off. And you see in the parentheses how they were changed over time. All those ones along the Genesee River were all gone by 1826. The Cattaraugus and the Allegheny, Salamanca Reservation stayed pretty much as they are. The Tonawanda Reservation was about half. And of course, the Buffalo Reservation was reduced in 1826, and then in 1838 was sold. Very complicated process. I'm not going to try to even get into that. But suffice it to say, the Indians lost most of the land that they had been given during the process of the Holland Land Company developing all this land. All right, so Joseph Ellicott had a lot to do. He got it all surveyed. He divided everything into blocks like you see here. Towns were 6 mile by 6 mile. You probably have noticed that as you're driving across town, you see the town marker in a very orderly fashion. So he had to lay out roads, which traditionally went along Indian trails. He also had to create schools, allow room for churches, bring in folks to run shops, all the things you need to create a society. One thing I found interesting was all of these I'd say 90% of the property that was sold to small, and like farmers, blacksmiths, you name it, folks that were going to eke out an existence in the frontier. Well, they couldn't buy that property outright. They bought it on time. So when Joseph Ellicott went, okay, back up a little bit. There was one county, and that was Ontario County. So Joseph Ellicott used to have to take the receipts and all the paperwork by horse from Batavia to Canandaigua. And he said, this has got to change. So he appealed to the state legislature to create Genesee County. So Genesee County was the entire western New York. Over time, the counties grew and expanded to the present configuration. So this is an interesting story. Maybe you guys know your history better than me. I didn't. I realized that to be able to vote, you had to be a white male. That was, my history books taught me that. But I had forgotten that you also had to own property. Well, these folks that were there, they were buying property, but they didn't own it. They didn't have the title to it. So when it came time to elect legislators for the new legislature, there's not that many people that could be in it. So Joseph Ellicott wanted to get the legislation changed so that people could actually vote, even though they didn't technically own the land. Interesting story, some guys from Vermont came. Vermont was one of those free mountain states, right? You could vote no matter, who you were. No women, sorry, no women could vote there. But the men could vote whether they owned property or not. Well, they came to Batavia, they settled in Batavia, it was election day, they went to the polls to vote, and they were met by armed guards. No, you don't own property here. There was a big fight, a tussle, and it was all settled back in the tavern somewhere. But I thought that was so interesting because all these things have to change over time. The legislation has to change. So, all right. That's his lottery system, and there it is today. And you can still see the on the map the Buffalo Creek Reservation right here. Very, very large reservation. You guys again are right about there. Okay. That's downtown Buffalo. You probably recognize it. I can show you on my tie afterwards. Downtown Buffalo had a lot of the street names that we recognize today. There's Chippewa, Huron, Mohawk, Cazenovia. I don't think Cazenovia is a street. But there's also some very difficult to pronounce names, and those were the names of the Dutch bankers. Schimmelpenninck, Stanitsky, Vollenhoven, and I forget, Cazenovia Terrace. So over time, those street names got changed, but the basic outline of Buffalo did not change. And did you know, Joseph Ellicott was a big supporter of the Erie Canal, and there was a battle between Black Rock and Buffalo as to where the terminus of the canal is going to be. Joseph Ellicott was behind the folks that wanted it to come into Buffalo because he owned property there. Ever been to the Hotel Lafayette? And next door to that is the Brisbane building. That is a property that was owned by actually by James Brisbane, who's worked with Joseph Ellicott in Buffalo, or in Batavia. All right, there's early Batavia. How many people have been to Batavia? All right, cool. Should come back. It's a happening place. All right, what's in a name? So Joseph Ellicott, obviously the top gun. He was a surveyor. He was the land agent. A lot of places named after him. Ellicottville, of course, in the village of Ellicottville. Town of Ellicott down in Chautauqua County. Ellicott Avenue, Ellicott Park, Ellicott Creek, Ellicott Square, etc., etc. And then Cazenove, the original resident agent in Philadelphia, and Paolo Baste also had names after them. Town of Evans. Anybody from the town of Evans? Well, David Ellicott Evans was Mr. Ellicott's nephew, so the town was named after him. Jacob Otto. We have East Otto and Otto, so he was named after another resident of the Hollow Land Company. And of course, the town of Hollow. So, all right. Now, I'm going to read just a little bit of this, and then you'll be able to get to your golf day. All right. So I talked a little bit about Red Jacket. Well, Red Jacket was quite a character. He fought hard to get better conditions from at the tree, a big tree. He was not particularly successful. But Red Jacket is still known today because he had a tendency to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Well, a minister by the name of Cram, can you imagine? Reverend Cram came to the Buffalo Creek Reservation and was trying to convert the Indians to the Christianity. And he had some success, but Red Jacket, I hope I can find this, but I'm going to wrap up with that. Brother, our seats were once large and yours were small. He's speaking to the white man. You have now become a great people, and we have scarcely a place left to spread our blankets. You've got our country, but you are not satisfied. You want to force your religion upon us. You say that you are sent to instruct us as to how to worship the Great Spirit, agreeably to his mind. And if we do not take hold of the religion which you white people teach, we will be unhappy hereafter. You say that you are right, and we are lost. How do we know this to be true? We understand that your religion is written in a book. If it was intended for us as well as you, why has not the Great Spirit given it to us? And not only to us, but why did he give it to your forefathers, the knowledge of that book, with the means of understanding it rightly? We only know what you tell us about it. How shall we know when to believe, being so often deceived by the white people? You say there is but one way to worship and serve the Great Spirit. If there is but one religion, why do you white people differ so much about it? Why not are all agreed, as you can all read the book? And he goes on to point out, and let's see, one more. He was a very erudite man, and this speech to the minister got published and republished and became a very famous document in the 1800s, maybe even today. Who knows? We do not wish to destroy your religion or take it from you. We only want to enjoy our own. You say you have not come to get our land or our money, but to enlighten our minds. I will now tell you that I have been at your meetings and saw how you collect money from the meeting. I cannot tell you what this money was intended for, but suppose that it was for your minister. And if we should conform to your way of thinking, perhaps you may want some from us. Brother, we are told that you have been preaching to white people in this place. These people are our neighbors. We are acquainted with them. We will wait a little while and see what effect your preaching has upon them. If we find it does them good, makes them honest and less disposed to cheat Indians, we will then consider again of what you have said. So, I thought that was interesting. And as I became more interested in volunteering at the Holland office, we have a wonderful display of the longhouse that the Indians lived in, a great image of Red Jacket, and a woman by the name of Mary Jameson, who was a white woman who was taken by the Indians somewhere around Binghamton and ultimately was raised Indian and was able to speak for the Indian at the treaty, excuse me. So, do we have any questions? Have I missed anything? I'm sure I have. Yeah, anybody got a question? Okay, you.
You must be very pleased with the increased emphasis on Indian history, Native American history, and sensitivity, which is beginning to be shown.
Absolutely. It has been a long road for that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What are the hours of the museum?
The museum is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 until 4. And it's, believe me, you folks coming from the west, it's easy to get into because you turn left off of 98, you'll see Dunkin' Donuts as you turn the corner, and right across from Dunkin' Donuts you'll see the building, and you turn into that parking lot. If you're coming from the east, oh boy. Oh boy. Ask me about it later. It's not easy coming from the east because of all the truck traffic that follows the old Indian Trail known as Highway 63 from 390. So, yes, sir.
Were there other sales offices for the Holland Land Company all over western New York?
There was an office in Mayville.
Right.
If you're familiar with Mayville, I think I've got a picture of that. Hang on. All right. Well, anyway, I apologize for my lack of, I've got fat thumb disease. So yes, Mayville was the auxiliary office, and that is where there was a rather nasty battle. The settlers in the 1830s who were paying money to the Holland Land Company were sick of paying money to the Holland Land Company, so they raided it, they took all the papers and burned them. And then they formed a mob, and they were outside of the Batavia Holland Land Office building. And luckily enough, the local folks formed a collection of folks with arms, laden with arms, and they repelled the attack on Batavia. Otherwise, all the records would have been burned, and who knows what would have happened. All right. Way over here. Yes, sir.
So this big tree that you're talking about, this is in Geneseo?
Geneseo,
It
yes.
just kind of dawned on me that, I mean, when I hear that, I think we're on Big Tree Road right out here.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I visit my son who goes to Geneseo, SUNY Geneseo, it's a straight line. It's
Yeah.
a straight drive on 28 all the way out.
Yeah.
So this tree's no longer there? I mean, the road's named after literally a tree, right?
Those, I don't know what species of oak those are, but they're a very long-lived tree, and the tree was right on the banks of the Genesee River. And over time, you know how the river moves. Well, eventually, it washed the tree out into the Genesee River, and you know everyone knew what it was. It was a very famous location, you know, right from the beginning. So they were able to salvage the trunk and make. I forget, they made something out of it. And I know the Livingston County Historical Society cut up little pieces of it, and you could have it on your desktops. I think they're all gone. All right. Anybody else? Yes.
I know up in Niagara County, they had to make adjustments because of the river and the lake, so they couldn't make squares for the towns. Now, when I moved down here, I never really figured out what mile strip was for. What was that for? Did you know?
That's this. Mile strip was along the river, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, the federal government wanted control of that. They did not want that to belong to private industry, you know, folks because
Protection.
of protection, exactly. This, of course, the War of 1812 came along. Actually, the troops fell back to Batavia during the War of 1812. There was no battle there, but the troops were wounded in the battle at
We have a strip down here that goes east and west. What was that? What do you call the road up there?
Mile Strip Road. Yeah, Mile Strip Road is, that's a good question. I don't have the answer, but it's in the book. Let me just zip over here and then we'll wrap up. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. This book, Joseph Ellicott and the Holland Land Company, gives you a great history of the Holland Land purchase, the survey, all these questions about, you know, there's a strip that runs right up the middle of goes from north to south. That was the demarcation point in surveying. You had to have a line that you knew where it was, and that is that strip that goes north to south. That was not called Mile Strip. Mile Strip actually goes east to west.
Is that Transit Road?
Transit Road, exactly, because of the transit. All right. Wait, yes, one more. Pam, right?
When did the Holland Land Company go out of business?
Excellent question. I know the answer. 1839. So they had sold all of the land that they were going to sell, and they went out basically about 1850 was when the last paperwork was transacted. They stopped selling land in 1839. All right. So anybody that has property in western New York, unless they were inside the confines of the reservations you see there, your deed is going to go all the way back to Holland Land Company. The Holland Land Company, they ceased to exist about the same time across the world. All right? All right? Everything? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Apologize for a little spotty here and there. And I'll throw in one more plea. Come to the Martin House. I'm there a lot as well. It's a great tour. I'm more comfortable doing that tour than this because, well, this is my first one for the Holland Land Office, so thank you for being my, there you go. And by the way, one last thing, I'll give it up to you, no golf. We are in the middle of a fundraising campaign. We want to expand, be able to provide an easier access for folks that are unable to get into places quite so easily. Our entrance is very substandard. So we want to increase that, and we want to also really get the word out there. Holland Land Office Museum is a great place to go. It's not just about the Holland Land Office properties, it's also about Batavia and Genesee County history. And you ask me about Batavia's Madam after the show, I can tell you that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So it's a little bit for you, and thank you so much. It's very informative. I couldn't wait for this. I have a house built in 1850, and the deed starts with Holland Land Company, so I'm sure everyone here is in the same boat. So hope all of you have a nice weekend. Thank you again, and see you next week.